Hello, welcome back to my channel. Please ignore my band-aids. They're not from a power tool injury. They're actually not. They're because I was learning to lathe and then I touched hot steel because I forgot that friction makes steel hot. Because I used to read fashion magazines in the back of my science classes and I would not encourage that as an activity for school children. Now, you may have noticed that I haven't uploaded in a while. It's been about a month, which is pretty unusual for me. I try to do every 2 weeks. This video is about me planning out my craft room because, hello Smeagol, my cats are jumping around because it's about 2:30, which means that's when they start harassing me for food. In basically every single one of my last videos, I have commented on how messy and disorganized and chaotic my crafting room / home office is, and I really want to change that. I really do. For several years now, I have had dreams and even made building attempts when it comes to designing a kind of library-style rolling ladder inbuilt desk office space that doubles as a craft room. Because my partner and I have a pretty small, stock standard 1980s build Australian house in the suburbs, it's basically like small house that has 3 bedrooms. But I'm not gonna lie, lucky neither of us want kids because you could not raise a child in this house with already 2 adults, especially when one of them is a child. In my series on this channel, Building a Haunted Home, I've documented a lot of the current, like, half-finished, semi-finished rooms. And ultimately, because my office is smack bang in the middle of our house, it's what was advertised as the dining room, except that we've changed that to our entryway because it's bigger. And this is a much smaller room. And I'd always wanted to add library shelves, whether or not we had kept it as a dining room or not. And since it became my office, the dream did not go away. We made a few attempts at creating some shelving, starting with the idea of floating shelves a couple of years ago. I think I showed the process a little bit during a Vlogmas that I did a couple of years ago. And I have even gone through different iterations of the shelving behind me and the backdrop behind me. I'm pretty happy with the current design of the backdrop here. This is basically going to be my 2 bookshelves. Right now that shelf is filled with fabric. You can ignore that. I've put a curtain over it for now. That fabric will be moved over to the other side where my desk is. Now, my desk is currently 2 giant boards of wood that I purchased from the hardware store a couple of months ago now, actually. It used to be an electronic sit-stand desk, but I realized that I never used the stand function, so I got rid of that and I bought a bunch of wood and started cutting up the other 2 of the bookshelves that I have behind me, which I think are the IKEA Billy. I think they are some kind of like IKEA Billy bookshelf version. So currently I have a bunch of cut up bookshelves, 2 slabs of wood, and a bunch of wood clamps holding my desk together. And this very expensive camera is sitting on top of that, which is a little bit terrifying, as well as all of my expensive art supplies that I probably don't put lids on properly. She's attempting to be clean, but it's really hard when you get creative ideas at like midnight and you have to do it before you go to bed, otherwise you'll forget. Anyway, I'm going to show you how I plan in this video to convert those slabs of wood and wood clamps and cut up bookshelves into my dream craft room, where my craft supplies are hidden from view so that when guests come over, they're not necessarily in as much shock. It's likely they'll still be in a little bit of shock because there's usually a small pile of wood shavings or cotton or paint products littered about the place, but they'll be in less shock. And I think that's going to be good for their future heart strength, I think.
For once in my life, I've decided to sketch out an idea before beginning. As much as you would think the antithesis of my design struggles is due to my lack of planning, it's actually more that I have far too many hobbies. And designing a functional and aesthetically pleasing craft room is difficult when you need to store sewing equipment, sculpting, art, and other craft supplies all at once. I'm using the old cubic house method of sketching out the base plan for my desk. I did make an attempt to use SketchUp and some other free design software, but all I know is Photoshop and it all seemed far too difficult to figure out. Here on the right hand side of the screen, I'm making sure I mark out where the sliding door that leads to the backyard is. I then use this to give myself a rough idea of where the depth for the walls and desk will show up in the sketch. This is obviously all far from technical, but just something to give myself a guide. I'm marking out where I want my cabinets to sit under the desk. Each of these cabinets will have multiple shelves and a full door to hide all the various odds and ends I need. Above each of these under-desk cabinets, another shelf sits. These will be anchored to the wall with doors that have a windowed decorative glass panel and curtain to hide the supplies. Now, here I'm also sketching in my pegboard, which is currently hung on the wall to hold some of my sewing supplies. I'm not 100% sure if I'll decide to hide this or not, but I can picture turning it into a secret compartment behind a hidden portrait frame. And that's likely the closest I'll ever get to being able to build a secret passageway in my home. Unless, of course, you count the sheer amount of uninsulated gapping that Australian builders like to leave in brick veneer houses. The left-hand side of the screen shows where my sewing desk sits relative to my actual work desk with my monitors. Something that my partner often talks about is that if you plan on making changes to a house, you should always try and live in it as is for about a year. And I think that that's good advice and applies to rooms as well. Living in a home that you're renovating can be a bit of a shock, although it's really the only way I've ever lived. Growing up, my parents were always building our house. The reason I think that this is good advice is that you really need to figure out how your house works with your lifestyle and what you need. And for us, the biggest thing we need is functional storage. Because the more I litter my insane projects across various rooms, the more and more overwhelmed and forgetful I tend to get. Throughout the changes we've made in our house so far, I've learned that I do have a visual memory, and to find my things, it's easiest if they're clearly stacked up in a kind of open shelf style. But I'm not a massive fan of having tools and supplies on display at all times, so making sure that I have the option to close up shop is really important. Now, I didn't sketch it out here, but the plan is to have a rolling ladder that can attach to a horizontal shelf on either side of the room. Here I'm designing a carved wooden railing in the shape of a snakehead to sit on each side of the ladder, which will also add some year-round spooky, dark cottagecore whimsy to the room. It always takes me a few tries to get any little creature that I'm attempting to draw looking right, as you can see here. And yes, as usual, I am covered in plaster and I'm wearing my gardening jacket while drawing this. It was a freezing morning. I'm making sure that I get the details right here, so that I can easily transfer the image across to a block of wood and begin carving. Now I'm drawing up the rough outline for the decorative glass doors that will sit on top of the cupboards. I'm referencing some pretty classic designs in historical decoration and ornamentation, but given there's already one antique sideboard in the room, I'm going to try and keep it relatively simple and hope it all flows together. And I have thought about making an attempt to copy some of the designs on that antique sideboard across to some of my desk and shelving. Here I'm outlining the shelves, and I'm thinking that I'm going to keep one open shelving space at the base to collect things that I always need ready to grab, like scissors and threads. And I'm also working out some potential decorative apron designs that can further act as brackets or elements of the doors. At the very top of this left-hand shelf, I tend to stack my scrap fabrics. So I'm trying to work out if a card-style shelf would work to help me keep things organized. And then down the bottom, I'm also trying to work out what would work best in the open shelving section. I finished sketching out how the doors will look, and I think I might be ready to start building soon.
I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you're like me and you just love watching people add personality to their homes, please consider subscribing, because this video may not have been entertaining, but the next one will be. Maybe. I can't promise that. Don't trust me. I don't want to make any promises about that. Also, if you enjoy keeping up with me beyond my channel, I have an Instagram account which I update. I do. You can follow me over on Instagram or Pinterest. They are the social medias that I am on the most. And I have swaths of Pinterest boards that are actually not very well organized, so maybe you shouldn't follow me on there. Anyway, I'll see you guys in the next one. I hope you enjoyed. Bye.